Salisbury Plain in the west of England. An ancient landscape that has seen the ebb and flow of human occupation for thousands of years. It's also home to the army. This is Barrow Clump, and these soldiers are here on a rescue mission, with a difference.
Well, Operation Nightingale was formed through a conversation I had with a medical sergeant from 1 Rifles over in Beachley Barracks, who's got an archaeology degree, and we thought that being in the open air, working as a team, looking at the landscape would be a perfect way of getting soldiers who have had bad experiences on operational tours to recuperate in many ways, but at the same time doing some good archaeology and doing some good work for me. So it's a way of using archaeology and heritage as a way for service persons to recover after operational tours.
I'm from 5th Battalion of Rifles, and I got asked to come on this dig because I got injured in Iraq.
I was injured in Afghanistan and that, and they found me, rang me up and asked if I wanted to come and do an archaeological dig.
I was in quite a dark place myself, to come back from Afghanistan last year. This project helps. It's what it's all about, try and get soldiers back into sort of normal day life.
Archaeology almost uniquely has everything from hardcore navying through to actually very precise conservation of artefacts and so on, so there's something for everybody in here.
Just being around people and things like that, it just slowly but surely starts to build you back up again and gets you out and about, so everybody takes something away from it.
I've always been interested in history since I was a child. Something I've always wanted to get into but never found the right way of doing it. So Operation Nightingale has given me the opportunity to get back into working with history and archaeology again.
Barrow Clump is a distinctive hill rising above the Avon Valley, and this prominence has made it a centre of human activity. Archaeology has revealed evidence of an earlier Neolithic settlement on the site of this Bronze Age burial mound. The site was then reused as a cemetery in the Saxon period. This site is actually protected by English heritage, so why does there need to be a rescue mission?
The reason we chose Barrow Clump to work on is because it's a monument at risk, because badgers are bringing up material. From my point of view as an archaeological curator, the last thing you want is people ringing you up and saying there are human remains lying on top of one of your sites, or indeed an Anglo-Saxon spear. I needed to sort that out.
We were tasked by Tommy to come and start clearing the site here for the archaeological dig. And I was collecting an armful of branches over here, and lo and behold, I looked down to find this. It's a 5th or 6th century Saxon spearhead.
The badgers are a problem on this and other sites. Over recent years, the badgers have riddled this mound with their burrows, and it's destroying the archaeology. In another 2 or 3 decades, there probably wouldn't be much left at all. So we're taking this opportunity to effectively rescue what's left before it's destroyed.
So our 3 trenches are opened up by a digger and the rescue mission begins. English heritage had previously dug on the site in the areas marked green. Our plan was to open new trenches marked in red, focusing in particular on the Saxon graves. Alongside the soldiers is another army of volunteer diggers, volunteer detectorists, helpers from the local community, young filmmakers, and of course the professionals from Wessex Archaeology. Some with a typical archaeologist's sartorial elegance.
That's Angus, yeah.
The hunky guy with the...
The hunky guy with the other beautiful vest.
I know, I'll never take this off.
Phil had been confident of finding Anglo-Saxon graves from day one, and this proved to be true, with Kenny quickly uncovering a star find.
When I was excavating my second skeleton, I found a drinking vessel.
It's known as a bucket, a manly drinking vessel, and it was found alongside a spearhead.
And it's in such good condition that there's nothing like it in the British Museum.
And the thing's made out of wood, we think yew wood. And because this is copper, it's mineralised the wood, which has preserved it.
I've never seen one with quite so much wood still existing on it. We had it here for a few days, and the bronze started to corrode because the chalk inside was damp and it was acting like a poultice. We've decided to work on it straight away. But at the moment, the only thing, now that I've removed all the chalk and all the roots that were sort of sticking the whole thing together, it's barely actually holding its shape. So what I've got to do now is to run something down in between the bands and the wood, just enough to hold it together so that when I take the springs out, the whole thing doesn't collapse. But we can see the decoration around the bottom there.
That's it.
And then you've got another one that's each side of each band.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a where is it? There's a mend somewhere around the bottom. Where's it gone? Or there. You've got an extra piece. You've got a plate with 2 rivets and a plate.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I just love that stuff.
Yeah. The other thing is it doesn't appear that it would have been terribly watertight. So, you know, questions, was this simply something that was made to be buried with the person? Or my suggestion is that these were Anglo-Saxon warriors. What do warriors do? They do the same as squatters do today. They want to have fun and have games. You fill that with beer, it's going to leak beer everywhere. So you fill it up and you drink it as quickly as you can before you get soaked with beer. Yeah, you know, it'd just be a good game.
They didn't have a leaking bucket, but our modern day warriors also got to enjoy themselves.
In the evenings, often play cards, have a chat, a few drinks, just get to know each other a bit better.
Oh, he's burning. Oh, and he's going on 9. Don't tell Michael. You're supposed to keep it a secret. Oh, you want a 9, my friend? Oh, burn it! Burn it now! You have to. Yeah. Oh, burn again! And another one! Oh, what are you saying?
The bucket was a spectacular success for the archaeologists. And now work continued on site with a flow of finds, including an unusual pair of brooches.
We've uncovered a skeleton which we've named Guinevere. We think she's a female. She's quite interesting in the fact that she's got a Saxon brooch and a Roman brooch, which is unusual. It was my teammate Nick who first discovered her knee bone, and I've got to say I was quite jealous. So we kept working away for the day. And when I found the brooches, I was ecstatic, to be honest. You know, being the first person in just over 1,000 years to look at those brooches is quite amazing. It's an honour, to be honest. Yeah.
The grave itself is incredibly interesting, as it's got one Saxon brooch and one Roman brooch, spanning roughly, 500 years difference. They're usually worn in pairs and usually fastening clothing in the shoulder area, which is where both are on this body.
The Roman brooch was going to be difficult to lift because of the extremely delicate pin, so Katie took on the job, watched by eagle eyes.
I mean, I used to go past something like that. It used to really hurt. To just bend down.
Yeah. The pin.
See the spring. Get in, back. Good.
The finding of a Saxon brooch paired with a Roman one is intriguing. Was it an heirloom kept in the family for hundreds of years? Meanwhile, another grave had been uncovered, the grave of a warrior.
Mike called me over at one point in the excavation to say he'd found some metalwork with one of the burials, and it was very clearly a shield boss, which was fabulous for him because that was probably the artefact he most wanted to find.
The body had been buried with a shield, 2 spears and a knife, so he was probably quite important, as other graves only contained one of these items. The position of the boss shows that the shield was placed over the face of the warrior.
It's an element of closing the burial in many ways. One of the riflemen said how he viewed it as very much a matter of respect. You're laying your weapons as a final act over the head of the individual.
Okay, this is the shield boss. It's made of iron. It's relatively well preserved. We've got a complete boss here. This would have been attached to a wooden shield by means of rivets around the circumference here. On the back we can make out traces of mineralised wood preserved from the shield itself. This would of course have been on the front of the shield facing the opposition. Here is the grip that would have been on the back of the shield to enable the warrior to grip the shield. The shape here is important to us because the shape of the boss, the profile, varies through time, so this will enable us to date this burial relatively closely.
What was fascinating about that was watching the reaction of the soldiers to excavating this man, because they felt a real sort of bond of kinship in many ways. He was one of their own because he potentially had seen fighting just like they had.
It's a great respect to lay their dead with what they fought with. Obviously they've been to war, and I can relate to that for the simple fact that I know the stresses they go through. I've been to Afghanistan myself. I know what stresses they go through. I possibly know what their families went through with them coming back, possibly dead, for the simple fact that I've lost friends out there. And what great respect for a fallen warrior to be dug up by another warrior, rather than sort of the badges that we're finding or civvies. It's just a brilliant respect for them, I believe.
So what would this warrior have looked like?
Greetinga, my name is Kana, it's John West Sax. Greetings, my name is Kana, I'm a West Saxon. I'm looking like a West Saxon would have looked, a warrior, high status, in most of his battle gear at roughly the time of these inhumations. So I'm an early Saxon. The spear, only carried by free men. Slaves or thralls were not allowed to carry the spear. In later times, the Saxon law said if a slave picked up a spear, you're allowed to break it across his back. So just by carrying the spear, you are showing that you are a free man. Sax, where some people say we get our name. Sax means knife. I have my long sax, this is my secondary weapon. I'm undoing my peace bond, I'm now not your friend anymore. The sax, based on a real one found in Gloucestershire, so not too far away. My tunic, dyed in natural colours, but again hard to make, madder red and birch leaf green. If you could own a tunic like this, in this colour, again you were wealthy, or nasty, or both.
Another film crew interested in our Saxon warrior was from the popular TV show Time Team. They arrived for a 3-day shoot alongside the soldiers, roping in Jake to be part of a shield wall. The Time Team producer also had tips for our film crew.
When you ask me a question,
yeah.
You look me in the eyes.
Yeah.
Keep
okay.
looking at me.
Okay, and action.
The most interesting thing about this site from my point of view is all these blokes in khaki. You don't often get a chance to work with the army, and this is such a brilliant project that it's perfect for Time Team. It's funny, you know, you might think that soldiers doing archaeology would just march all over it in their boots and smash it all up. Of course, the exact opposite is the truth. These are skilled people. Most of them have been technicians, have been working with unexploded ordnance, all that kind of stuff. So they've got very, very subtle hands, and the work that they've been doing over there is absolutely exemplary. And to me, I think, like, yeah, good on you, because when we started doing the programme, people used to slag us off and say, oh, what's a bunch of television people doing archaeology? Well, we can learn, we can do this stuff, so can soldiers, so can anybody. It doesn't have to be the preserve of academics in universities.
Working alongside the soldiers, Time Team opened up a new trench.
We want to know really whether the Anglo-Saxon burials go all the way around the site or whether they're just on part of the site. And one of the theories at the moment is that maybe people, the Anglo-Saxons anyway, were living down in the Avon Valley, and they would have looked up onto this side of the valley. They would have seen this large mound. That's where they would have buried their dead, and that they would probably have favoured that side of the monument because that's the bit that they see.
So the Time Team trench, the new one that they've put in, doesn't seem to be showing up a lot of archaeology yet. So they've actually extended an area of Trench 3. And so it was agreed that Phil Harding and his team would investigate a newly discovered grave, and this turned out to be a spectacular find. In the meantime, the site was opened up to the public by Project Florence. We held a site open day which had over 200 visitors, and we invited over 150 other people onto the site for tours. And this included local residents, young archaeologists and children from the local school.
Remember how many bones are in a human body? It's like
it might be 235.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, paper towels here as well. You probably need some of them.
Look here now, Mummy. Oh, you found this!
More pottery.
And this!
What a good archaeologist you are. Every age group had a great time, and even our Saxon warrior was on his best behaviour. So what was in this remarkable grave? Angus and James got out of their vests to give us a detailed explanation.
Okay, so what we've got here is a very unique grave compared to the rest of the cemetery. You've got this packing of chalk that has been packed all around the edge of the grave. So what we believe is potentially there is either some kind of wooden structure that's going down here, up and across there. In contrast, throughout the middle area of the grave, so within where I'm pointing here, you've got this much darker, just more naturally looking fertilised brown soil there. So what's happened is they've used this earth again, or whatever it is, to actually level the surface she's been laid upon, in contrast to the other graves where we've got the bodies have just been directly laid on top of the chalk. Now if you think, why is it going to be levelled? There's something flat going onto this surface. And potentially thinking again, some kind of wooden board potentially that she may have been laid onto. Now coffins are very, very rare in the Saxon period, so we're not directly suggesting a coffin itself, but to get your head round, it's some kind of coffin-esque structure. Finds wise, this is the best bit to be honest. We have a square-headed brooch here, we've got a gilded circular brooch here.
That's lovely, isn't it?
We've had little tiny glass beads, we've had one behind the ear, we've had 8 found in the chest cavity area. We also have had some slightly larger amber beads running up in between the lady's legs. So they're not very clean at the moment, but they will be at some point. In the middle there, we've had a much larger crystal bead as well. Also, you can just see there is a finger with a copper ring on it as well. You know, she's a really blinged up young woman, this one. I'm presuming she's young, sorry.
So what age was this blinged up Saxon woman? Well, the bones were lifted and brought here to Wessex Archaeology to be looked at by Jackie McKinley, our expert osteoarchaeologist, who should be able to give us a more detailed picture.
Now with this individual here, she obviously is an adult, and I know she's an adult because you've got fusion of quite a lot of the ends of the long bones. So she stopped growing and those ends of the long bones have fused. So I'm going to go to look at the teeth here now. And what I can see is, you can see she's got all her teeth erupted, but back here we have what we call the wisdom tooth and what I'd call the third molar. I mean, the reason it's called a wisdom tooth is because it doesn't develop until you're in your teens, and it doesn't erupt till you're in your late teens, maybe sometimes your early 20s. Now, it's erupted on this side it's still coming through. Even more importantly, I've got the third molar from the upper part of the jaw, and I can see the roots have not quite finished developing. So I know that this individual was in her late teens or early 20s. People always joke about this, you know, oh, some people undress people, I tend to deflesh, because your face is determined by your skull. So you can see whether they had a long thin face or a round face and whether they had quite gentle, even features. To be honest with you, the head and face of this girl here would be very much like our colleague standing behind you. She would have looked quite like Laura.
So this woman looked like me, but maybe a little shorter.
Yeah, this is actually quite a small individual. Now if I give you a for instance, if I take this bone here, which is an adult male, and this is quite a big chap, and I put this next to it, which is our little female, you can see that she was really, I would term it as small and gracile. We'd call it petite, about 5'2", if that.
Although she was buried along with all the bling, this woman had worked hard during her short life.
She's actually got quite prominent mastoid processes. These sit sort of basically behind your ear, but it's fairly large. But that could be because the way she's been carrying things. Because this again is muscle attachments, and that's what I'm doing there. I'm flexing the muscle that attaches on there. So she's obviously done a fair amount of that. If you're lifting something, or if you're carrying something on your head, anything that's going to make you tense up those muscles on a regular basis. She's not one of the lowest of the low by any means, but people would still have to work.
It is quite heavy. Yeah.
She wasn't sat in front of the telly drinking tea all day.
So, another fascinating find from the Saxon cemetery. But now, after 6 weeks, the dig was finishing and the site was being backfilled.
Best bit, strangely enough, it was finishing. We knew the monument was there, but we didn't know what sort of damage it was in or what condition it was in, so it was quite a risky dig to take on. So when the digger came into backfill, we were quite relieved then that we'd actually managed to pull it off, and it gives us a lot of confidence ready for next year.
Well, the excavation has finished for this year. The site has now been filled back in, the badgers have moved back in and are living quite happily on the site. But I think it went fantastically well. They found 26 Saxon skeletons and a prehistoric cremation, huge amounts of very important information about the site.
I've enjoyed it so much. It's been absolutely brilliant for me.
It's helped me a lot through some hard times like doing this, so yeah, it's been good, it's been enjoyable.
You know, I've been spoilt by the amount of the wealth of good archaeology that's been going on here. I've been learning from the best there is, really, I think.
I've learnt that archaeology teaches patience. You can't go too fast.
A pretty delicate work.
What I can look forward to is the next one we do. That's what every time I come off a dig, that's what I do. I look forward to the next one we do and the one after that, because I love these projects. It's sort of what gets me up in the morning. If I look forward to the next one, then I can't go wrong.
It was good archaeology. It was good, a good bonding experience for them, and the thrill of finding something of this quality was something that hopefully will stay with them for a very long time.
Not to in any way minimise their own personal difficulties, but when you're holding a piece of pottery in your hand with a thumbprint from the person that made it 3,000 years ago, that does put things into perspective.